You're listening to Conversations with Chanda, where leadership gets real and personal. This is where we cut through the noise to confront the issues shaping our world, from power and justice to the heart of community change. Hosted by Chanda Smith-Baker.
Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, welcome to Conversations with Chanda. So happy to have you.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, you have been on the list to talk to because I think your leadership journey is amazing and I want to learn more about it. And then secondly, we're in such an interesting place in this country.
No doubt.
And I have always experienced you as being very optimistic, honest, but optimistic. And I just want to hear from you how you're experiencing the moment and maybe supporting other people and how they are also seeing it. So, you have, made history as the highest ranking Native woman in public service. And I've seen some of your moves, but have you always wanted to be in public service? Like, can you just give us a window into your leadership journey? I
Sure.
would love that.
Yeah. So as a little girl, I certainly didn't think I want to be the lieutenant governor when I grow up. That was not on my list. I wanted to be an astronaut for a little bit, marine biologist. And then I wanted to be an early childhood special education teacher. And then I worked on Senator Wellstone's campaign in 2002 and everything changed. But up until that point, I was just raised by women. And women who just were in leadership positions. So I kind of didn't know anything different. My grandma was involved in party politics before it was polite for women to be at the table. And she led Wayside House back in the day and was executive director of a nonprofit when there weren't many women doing that. My auntie Peggy, who I am named after, she worked for Hennepin County in chemical health and managed a large team and did that work. My auntie Mary was an executive director as well of the YWCA, of Wayside House, of Perspectives. She ran for state senate in 1982. And so I just saw women leading. And then my mom, who just was my hero. And I watched her always say, our job is to make sure that we're taking care of people. Even if we don't have a lot, there's always someone who has less than we do. Even though, I think back in the day, we relied on SNAP, right? And during food drives at school, my mom would take that can out of the cupboard, which now I know that we needed that can, right? But she always was I want to model for you and show you, right? That we always can do something to help other people. So for me, women just did things. They just led. They just took care of their families. They showed up when needed. They stepped into roles that maybe society didn't necessarily think they were ready for, but they're there's a problem. I have to help fix it. And so that's how I was raised. And I'm so grateful for it because maybe had I known something different, I would have felt a little bit more apprehensive about taking risks. But I just saw women around me do it all of the time. And I just was oh, this is just how you show up for your family and for your community. And my hope is that, with my daughter, Siobhan, that she sees some of that too, especially in the community that, I always say my number one job, my most important job is to be Siobhan's mom, right? And to keep her safe. But then we also have a responsibility to the community. And so modeling that, or that she has a responsibility to do that at school and with her classmates and, with her friends, that hopefully I'm showing her a little bit of what the matriarchs in my family showed me, and it'll be a little bit easier for her too when she speaks up or steps out.
Yeah, I love that. When you were observing your family, the women in leadership, did you realize it at that time, or was it just a matter of fact? And then in reflection, you realized that they were breaking barriers? Like when did it become sort of the linkage that you just shared?
I think growing up, it just was what I saw. And so I didn't really think anything of it. But it wasn't until I got older and started navigating a lot of these systems myself where I'm like, oof. And then was able to talk about that must have been really hard, or you made it look so easy, right? Like like a duck, right? Just zooming across the water and just knowing now just how many challenges were there as well. Even like my Auntie Kathy, who also worked for Hennepin County, she led some of the very first work on diversity, equity, and inclusion for the county. And like that was absolutely an uphill battle. It is a battle again, but it is a battle worth fighting. And I just think I didn't realize all the struggles that they had. And part of that was, I think, a real gift in many ways, because it allowed me, right, to be able to say, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to do it. Now, I mean, sometimes you fall on your face and you can navigate those challenges. But really, as I've grown older, it has been nice to be able to have like some of the real conversations with my aunties, and like my Auntie Mary, who ran in 1982 for the state Senate, right? As an out lesbian, was like, that was an adventure, like, and she real close. But just what she experienced in that time, and now, almost 40 years, 40 years later, over 40 years later, just how different things are. There still are things that certainly remain the same, and that we have to overcome. But just how courageous she was and bold she was to just put herself out there and just do the damn thing.
Do the damn thing. You know what I love about this story and the stories that come on here is that often when we're in the work, we're just working. We don't even know who's watching and who is being inspired by what we're doing. Do you get a sense of that in your work now, that you're inspiring or opening up people's minds and worlds to what's possible? Are you aware of that?
I'm aware of that when young people come up to me and we can have some of these conversations. Especially, I think, a lot of these systems weren't created by us or for us, but in many ways were created to silence or eliminate us, and certainly keep us on the outside. So even things like speaking Ojibwe or wearing a ribbon skirt and a blazer into a space, young women will come up to me and say, like, that matters because I know I'm supposed to be here. And it's so simple acts, I think, of just taking up a little space, of being yourself, that I think goes a really long way. And that's important to me. Sometimes I get interesting feedback, quote unquote, from folks about how I dress, or, people say, oh, that's not what a lieutenant governor is supposed to dress like. I'm like, well, I am a lieutenant governor. This is what we dress like, right? As we are sort of seeing more women, more Indigenous women, more women of color in like leadership roles, it's going to look different. And like, that's all right. Because, I think democracy functions best when it accurately reflects the community it seeks to represent. And so that's how we get better results, is by having, more diverse voices and perspectives at the table. Yeah. And, for my daughter, her reality is totally different than mine, right? Like, I saw these women leading, but I certainly didn't see Native women in elected office. And now she's like, oh, I've got Auntie Deb, who is the Secretary of the Interior, Auntie Charisse, who's in Congress, and like, yeah, big whoop, my mom's the lieutenant governor, right? Like, what will be possible for her? Sort of just seeing that. My hope is that she, along with others, are able to just walk into a room and be more confidently, their full selves, because they have seen others who've done that. And if I'm doing my job, right, that's what's possible.
Yeah, that's the job for sure. So we just had a good DEI lesson.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And I say that because you mentioned the reversal of DEI and some of the things that we're experiencing right now. And part of what it is representation, right? And even in the air quote, the feedback that you get is someone experiencing something that what they define is normal or acceptable, which wasn't inclusive of all people, all women, right? Diversifying from whatever their experience is. And so how are you grappling with this reversal? Like, do you have any words of wisdom or concern about what this is doing, or perhaps what it could inspire in a moment like this?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say this. I try to use the full phrase, right, and actual words, right, of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because I think it matters, right? Okay. Diversity is diversity of identity, experiences, expertise, and ultimately, as someone who has been an organizational leader, I know that helps me get better results. If we just have the same folks at the table, we get the status quo, and that doesn't help us innovate. That doesn't help us grow or lead, I think, in the way that we need to for the future. Inclusion, I think, means just like being welcoming and creating environments where people like want to participate and be a part of it. And equity, I think, means access. Those are all things I think that folks, regardless of your experience or background, like want, and we can get aligned around. And I think like right now in our politics, when there are folks who are taking advantage of using that somehow in a way to divide us, it's essentially saying like we all have to compete over like the same piece of pie, instead of being clear that there are folks who benefit from us all competing over that same piece of pie, instead of coming together and knowing that we could have the whole damn pie if we just work together. So we are certainly going through growing pains, but I think it is also a moment for us to just get really clear about like, what does this actually mean, right? What are folks telling us this means, and what does this actually mean? I think it means like innovating, being welcoming, and getting better results for our organizations, our communities, our state as a whole, our country. And that's, I think, how we have to talk about it. And I don't think we have to shy away from it when I've seen things get better, right? As a recovering executive director, right? Like I know that if everybody who works for me had the same skill set or the same identity, that would not be of service to the people our organization served. So I think we just have to get clear. And for the companies, I think about like folks like General Mills who are like super clear. This continues to be a top priority for us because we've seen it help us get good results. Like we should lean into that. And I think that is something that I think Minnesota's kind of always strived to be about, and we should continue to work towards it.
Yeah, I think for sure they've expressed it.
Yes. What it looks like in implementation is. Yeah.
I think we've been challenged in implementation, but I believe that we know the polite things to say as Minnesotans. You said Wellstone's name. You say his name often, I think, in his way to honor and to recognize his impact broadly, and then certainly in your life. And Paul Wellstone was a person, but in many ways, it was a bit of a movement. There was a movement around him. How would you describe that? Because there are people that are like, I'm part of like it's like an affinity group or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I truly was like driving past the Wellstone for Senate office my senior year of college. And I was like, you know what? I like Paul Wellstone. I'm just going to go check it out. And it was one of those moments in my life where it was a pivot, like something really changed. And I walked in And there were like 7 people who said, welcome, come on in. Are you here to volunteer? And I was like, I guess. And I stuffed envelopes, which is a thing we used to do, which we don't do anymore, with complete strangers for like 2 hours. And then I just kept going back to do what needed to be done. And towards the end of the campaign was working on our urban native organizing work. And it was a space where so many communities felt like he was ours, right? Like felt that connection. And even if people didn't agree with him all the time, they knew that he was authentically himself and they could trust that. And I think that is something that's really missing in our politics now. But and it was completely devastating to lose Senator Wellstone and his wife, Sheila, their daughter, Marcia, Mary, and Will. It just, it was a lot. And out of that grew Wellstone Action that for many, many years continued this work of training organizers, teaching folks to run for office, work on campaigns. And I still, when I travel across the country, someone will be like, oh my gosh, you were my trainer, right? In Kentucky in 2006. And now they're like doing really amazing things. So it's fun to see that that really grow out of that movement. And there's now a lot of folks who don't know who, I know Wellstone was, or I would say is. And I think that legacy, though, continues to live on in so many leaders who are part of that campaign, who decided to get involved in politics because they felt a connection to Paul, advocates, just so many people. And in this moment, I think the thing that I'm really trying to do that is connected to what that campaign taught us and what Paul taught us is that you should try to leave communities better off than you found them, with lasting infrastructure and leaders who can continue to do this work regardless of whether or not you are there. And, that is, my friend Naomi calls it an exit strategy, right? Where she's like, if you miss a meeting, does everything fall apart, right? She's like, or have you created the conditions where there are more people who are able to step in and to continue to lead? And I think, we can build campaigns. Of course, it's a winning, it's a way to win, but it also is like, how do we then keep winning? How do we keep making sure, right, that we have folks who know how to lead on comms or put field together, who can dig deep into policy work, who were volunteers, who now are campaign managers, right? Like that's also what we're doing. And I think that's just so needed and necessary in this moment, especially as we're pushing back against folks who would rather see us go away or have our rights taken away, that we need to build something that is long lasting and that's grounded in community instead of electoral strip mining, where it's like the circus comes to town. We tell people how important they are, and then we don't see them for 2 years or 4 years or whatever, right? Or folks get religion the Sunday before Election Day, or my community decide to hit the powwow trail, right, in August before the election. There just is, we should have higher expectations because that is then what helps us grow the work in these movements. But that, I think, is the legacy of Senator Wellstone and what he taught us and what we're trying to do.
Right. So I'm an alum of Wellstone Action. And I was sitting here, I'm like, were you my teacher? I feel like it was you and Jeff Hayden.
Yeah, I bet. We did. I did most of the camps here. Mm-hmm.
That's wild. I'm like, I feel like I've led like 9 lives. Like when I'm talking, I'm like, wait, I did that. Anyway, I think that's right. You don't know who's inspiring and you don't know what you're seeding. And I like this idea of an exit strategy, or for sure, one of how do you make the community better? But that includes not like the people around you. How do you create space and how do you move it forward in that way? Peggy, what do you think the state of, or how would you describe the state of our democracy right now?
Ooh, It is fraught. It is fractured, and it is worth fighting for. You know, a little earlier, you said that you've known me to be an optimistic person. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think I'd also talk a lot about like hope. Like hope feels like an action. Like you have to participate in it. I think about one of my mentors, Jim Wallace, who one of the quotes that stays with me is he says, "Hope is believing in spite of the evidence and watching the evidence change."
Yeah.
And I think that that is one of the moments that we are in with our democracy, that when I reflect back and I think of, you know, it's only 100 years ago last year that Native people were given the right to vote. And then it wasn't until even in some instances within my lifetime or very close to it that like folks actually, right, had access, right, and the ability to vote. And so much of that is being rolled backwards as we speak. But we have to, I think one of the things we're in this moment where we have to actually get beyond just voting, right? Like that matters. But then what happens? And how are we shaping the kinds of things that we want to see and being able to speak to some of those things? Like I think about every time we go to church and we go to Ascension on the north side, and every time we go to church and we drive past V3, my mom's like, "Oh, Mom, are you going to talk about V3 again?" Right? I'm like, but it is one of these things where it is an example of what can happen when we have folks participating in our democracy, right? One of the things that we've been able to do, and I was able to do as Lieutenant Governor, was push for equity and bonding and having access to capital for 8 organizations led by and for communities of color. Because even when I was in the legislature, it felt like there was these backroom deals and handshakes that were happening. And it would like, we don't even know what's going on in there. And our communities didn't necessarily have access when we are clearly doing incredible work, right? Like we also need access to capital to be able to expand and to thrive. And when Siobhan gives me a hard time about driving past V3 and I talk about it, it's because I was like, my girl, I want you to see, like, this is what it can look like when you speak up, when you work together with people in community and with your allies to get something done. It looks like this, right? Or it looks like Juxta, right? Like there were equity and bonding dollars, equity and capital dollars there. And all of the entrepreneurs and all of the small businesses that have grown out of that space is incredible. And so that I think is like when we talk about democracy, like let's talk about what it has helped us achieve. There are so many folks who want people to make themselves small in this moment. That doesn't serve anybody right now, right? Like we can dream big and we should be dreaming big and talk about like, what does that actually look like? That feels like the thing that will help to save our democracy instead of just saying like, it's bad. Like, no, it's bad, right? Like, and that's okay. And we can fight and we can push back, you know, against Donald Trump and the powers that be that do not want us to have that access. And we have to talk about what we're for. So, you know, entrepreneurs, growing small businesses, people having a dream and being able to put that together and actualize that. Our young people being able to walk into any classroom and know that they will be seen and heard and valued and invested in. It means that some person behind a desk doesn't decide whether or not I live or die because they're approving treatment that my doctor has already prescribed for me, or the fact that Congress has approved the lowering prices for 10 prescription drugs for folks on Medicare. Like, that's great. But like, why not all of them? And why not for everybody? So there are just, I think, these pieces that we get to talk about. What does it mean to have a functioning democracy? It means that people have an ability to dream a bit, achieve those dreams, and then continue to build. And I know that there are folks who fought for that, who cleared a path for so many of us. And we got to do that work again, right? When I would complain or be like, Mom, things are hard, She had a lot of tough love from.
Oh, you think it's hard now.
That's right. And she'd be like, I prepared you your whole life for this moment.
Yeah.
Right. And she's like, now your job is to figure out how do you prepare Siobhan for this moment. I think that's right. Like, it is incredibly difficult now. And we have a lot of tools. We have people who have shown us the way, right? And like that resiliency and that need to like keep coming back. And maybe a little bit of my hope and optimism is also that I'm just stubborn.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, for a while, everyone that was sort of around me were like, hey, how are you? And I'm like, I am good, right? I am actually good. I actually believe that we've had harder times in this country.
Right.
I actually believe that we hold power as long as we don't give it away.
Yep.
And I believe in our ability to innovate and to make it through and to navigate. And you brought up church, like there's nothing new under the sun. It's right there.
That's right.
And so I believe in all of those things. And I think as you were talking, one of my questions was around what do you see as the greatest threat to our democracy? And where I was sort of landing as you were talking is resignation.
Yes.
That could be one of the biggest threats. Like we can externalize it and believe that someone is supposed to do something for us. But resignation is a threat. And I don't know what other threats you see, but I mean, folks that are leaning in, whether or not it is whatever the stuffing envelopes are, it doesn't have to be a big task. Just do something in service to.
That's right. Yeah, I do. I agree with you. I think resignation is the biggest threat. Just throwing up your hands. And, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And so like, I want to also acknowledge
honor. Yeah.
Right. Like there's just like a lot of trauma and just.
There is. Look, sometimes you got to sit down for a few months. I sat down, right? I am not opposing sitting down and get what you need. Yep. But there's a point where you got to get up.
That's right. And knowing that that it's okay to tag out and that there's other folks who are going to keep going and you can tag back in and that we actually have to create conditions so that is okay. Because right now, if people are just like grinding it out and driving themselves into the ground, that is not helpful for these kinds of movements that we need to sustain. Or as folks say, like, what is the one thing that I can do? There's not just one thing. And in fact, there are multiple tools in our toolbox, right? We can make 5 calls. We can send emails. You can protest outside of the office of someone you wish was doing better. You can take to the streets. There are many, you can run for office yourself, right? You can create safe spaces for people to just gather and be in community with one another.
You can vote.
You can vote. That's right. So I don't want to just give away power.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the challenge, but also that sometimes it feels so overwhelming to folks that they're like, oh, I have to be an expert in everything. You don't. You just have to be an expert in your own life and how like you're being impacted or someone you love and care about is being impacted in this moment and like lift that up, tell that story. Those narratives are way more powerful than any other. But did you read this article I sent you? Right? Like, what about this flyer, these facts, figures, and statistics? Like we have, since time immemorial, we have learned and been moved through storytelling. It is one of our most powerful tools, and I think it is foundational for everything else that we need to do. And it is the antidote to that resignation because folks feel at stake in it.
So you're Lieutenant Governor of the state of Minnesota, which means that you are, in fact, responsible for people that you may not agree with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you balance that? How do you ensure that you are saying true to your values and inclusive?
For sure. So one of the things that I love about this job is that very thing, that we don't have to agree on everything for me to be able to represent you, but also to find common ground for there be things that we can work together on. I remember when I was first running for lieutenant governor with Governor Walz, we were making these calls, and I called this guy and he was like, I was with you and I was with Walz till he put you on the ticket. And I was like, okay. And, in typical Minnesota fashion, I was like, that's interesting. Can you say more about that? Right. So he said, well, he's like, I live up on the range, and he's like, I don't think we have a lot in common, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, let me stop you there. One of the most important votes I ever took when I first came into the legislature was to extend unemployment benefits to minors who are out of work. And I said, I got a lot of grief about that from some folks in my party, because there was some language in the bill that they didn't love. And I remember one person in particular said, it surprised me that that's how you voted as a Native woman, which was, again, I'll use that, interesting.
Ooh,
and
that was interesting.
Ways. And I said to him, I said, listen, like, I remember what it was like coming up when my mom would say, oh, I ate at work. Or, oh, I'll just eat something after you go to bed. I'm not hungry right now. And only until I became Siobhan's mom, right, did I then realize that we just didn't have enough food in the house. And so I said to him, I said, listen, I voted in favor for that bill, even though it had, language that maybe, wasn't 100% what I would have voted, what I was in favor of, right? But the core value of that was making sure that kids had food in their bellies and that parents could keep food on the table, and that people held their dignity. Right. And it got real quiet. And he was like, I was one of those guys. And then he was all in. And so I think that those are the moments where we can lean in a little bit more. And listen, people may have assumptions about me, and my job, and has been for, the last many years, to show up and listen to people. And it is one of the greatest gifts in this moment is when people will share deeply, deeply personal things with me. And then I have the honor of holding those things.
Yeah.
Right now, I truly believe that regardless of political party or assumptions you have about me or other folks, that like it's literally all of us versus extremist billionaires in this moment. And when it comes to issues of family economic security, like those are the things we are all in the same boat, right? For the most part. And those are the things we can lead into, like access to healthcare, high quality, affordable childcare, making sure that Social Security is still there, right? Things like Medicaid. Medicaid was my healthcare as a kid who had really bad asthma coming up, and I am alive because of it today. And there are so many folks who are impacted by it. Even if you don't use Medicaid yourself, I was up in East Grand Forks having one of these kitchen table conversations, and there is one nursing home in that community. If Medicaid takes a hit, that nursing home closes. And those are people's parents and grandparents. There are folks who work there. It is a critical part of this economy. And so we are all connected in this moment. And I think we need more people who understand what it's like to struggle, to be in positions of leadership, to be able to bring that perspective to the table so that we are able to make better decisions for, working folks. And again, like we might not agree on everything, but those are some of the things that bring us together and bring us to the same table.
I agree. You got me thinking about these 3 people on Facebook that every day I'm like, I should just unfriend because this feels so extreme.
Yeah.
And then every time I think it, but even in that, I know that we have things that we must have things that we agree upon to be connected in the first place.
Right.
That it's really important for me to understand where other people are at particularly if I'm not there, right? Just to understand it and not agree. And so we have serious sort of cancel culture. And I would say that it is fairly courageous to stay at the table. Like Facebook is not a thing, right? Like, I mean, it's not super courageous to do that because it's so passive. But in the work every day, in conversations with people in the spaces that you're in, that maybe have ideas that feel more extreme, I think that there is professionalism. I think there's other things that have to come around that. But what type of courage do you think is required right now? Is it extraordinary, or is it the same sort of courage that existed before? Like, in some ways it feels more complicated and more like more is required, but I can't quite get to it myself. And is it more, or is it just more often? Like, does it look different, or is it just more daily?
Mhm. That's a great question. I think like two things come to mind. One is my dad, who would say to me, he's like, "My girl, I want to burn the system down and you want to change it from the inside out. We need both." Right. And I think like this is one of those moments where there are absolutely things that are not working for many of us that we got to get rid of. Right. And like need to continue to be participants and sit at this table because we got work to do. And like, we can't just say like, we're going to throw all this out without saying, and here's what it looks like to build something that works for people. But I'd also say, I think about the story that I was told over and over again growing up, that my great grandfather was left on the front lawn with both of his legs broken for working to organize a union of sewer workers in Minneapolis, right? Like that was courage. And it means that we're willing to take risks on behalf of others. And you can still be afraid, right? Like you can still be afraid of what might happen and what could occur, or what will people think, but I think we still have to show up. And here's the deal. What I also think, though, is that it is okay to take care of yourself and to keep yourself safe. And that is also something that is incredibly important in this moment. But being able to take risks and speak out and do so in the company of other people, or being very clear about like my faith is foundational to how I use my voice when I take risks. Because I'm pretty clear that, in Matthew 25, we got to show up for the least of these. Like that was really clear. And it is not always popular, but I can check myself right in that way. And so relying on those things that are foundational, like if it is our faith, it is the stories or the legacy of our families and the fights that they fought. If it is being like an Anishinaabe and knowing all of the grandmothers and aunties and my mom and others who like love me into existence, and honoring that work that they did, like finding that thing that you can have your like strong footing upon to be able to do the work, I think is what allows us to be courageous. Or like, as a mother, like I'm a mama bear and I will go down fighting for the people that I care about and communities and people having opportunity, like finding your thing that you can, again, just like get your footing and ready to like show up and push back and speak truth to power, I think is really key and critical to sustain ourselves for the work ahead and to sustain movements over time for what it is that we have to build.
Yeah. Are you clear on how your Native values show up in your leadership?
Mostly because my aunties hold me accountable. So my Ojibwe name is Gijiwewadamukwe, which means speaks in a loud and clear voice woman. And so there is accountability in my name.
Yeah.
And so if I am speaking up and how I am using my voice really, really matters. I would say the idea that we are caring about our children,
Yeah.
our elders, right? That we are thinking about how many, many generations into the future will be impacted by the decisions that we make now. Those are things certainly that I incorporate. And one of the lessons that I have learned from my namesake and from my teachers is that we pray for other people. Like you pray for the people. There are enough people who are praying for you, and your job is to pray for others. And that is a lesson that I am constantly learning and relearning. And that is, I think, one of the most important things that's guiding me in this moment. And I am so lucky to have just real, like, tender, loving individuals in my life, and my Native aunties who in some ways who love me in the way that I'm supposed to be loved, who love me through a lens of accountability, who love me when I am feeling afraid and vulnerable, who give me a soft place to land so that I can go back and do that work. But that's also just something I know, is that Native women have been nurturing our communities, have been holding our communities together for a very long time. And that women, generally, women of color, Indigenous women, immigrant women, we've all been leaders since time immemorial. It is just the rest of society that may be catching up a bit to us, and sort of using those skills. I think it is a really powerful moment that we are in, where it isn't simply the fight, but it also is like, how are we also loving each other, having that accountability in this moment for what we need to do? Because it's taken care of us for a really long time.
It has. I just recently wrote something, and I don't know, I've been writing a little bit more and thinking about the deep roots that I have in Minnesota, and saying that my ancestors' fight is in my DNA.
That's right.
Right? What they fought for, I've benefited from. But most of what they did is undocumented. Right? It's not even fully shared within the family, much less in a book, much less on street names, on the blocks, in the places in which they made a difference. So I think that, it is in some ways other people coming into the understanding of what leadership and struggle has looked like for communities outside of their own. But I think it's important to understand that the stripping of the truth in the storytelling, when we're talking about, again, how we represent, impacts us on an individual level.
That's right.
Right. I tell people that's why I like going to Atlanta, other places, because it's, oh man, I can see it everywhere I go. Like it feels like home. I don't live there.
Right.
And I'm fighting every day for this place to be and feel more inclusive. So I thought that in the importance of taking time within your families to share the story of struggle and of achievement, it is critical for us to document in whatever way we can, because it allows for us to live more fully in our leadership. The other thing I was thinking is leadership is just not easy. It's just effing hard, right? And it is complicated, and people aren't always nice. People that you love and look like you sometimes can act up with you. I mean,
that's like the hardest. Yeah.
Right. It's a roller coaster, man. And so for folks that know, and I specifically remember when I knew I was just waking up at night. Like I knew that there was more for me to do than what I was leading into, right? And like it was the voice. It was God, it was faith, it was whatever people wanted to find it. But I felt the draw to more. And I was trying to figure out why I was holding myself back. So if anyone is listening and they are feeling in their heart, in their mind, in their gut, in their soul, that they should step into more leadership and something is holding them back, what would you tell them?
I would say to take a risk. That leadership requires risk. And that if they feel that little voice, like it might just be your soul crying out, right? And like you should listen to it. I think so often one of the things that we get hung up on is occupation.
Mm-hmm.
And really, like the work is in your vocation. And so if you can think about that piece, right? And what is it I'm being called to do or moved to do? What's that thing you lose track of time doing, right? That like you might be tired at the end of the day, but it still fills you up. Like that's probably your thing. That's probably your gift. That is probably the place where you need to lean in, and that you can tell other people about it, right? Like, I'm going to step out. I'm going to try this. Like, I don't know if it's going to work, but like, I need you to know so that you come on this journey with me. So it doesn't feel like you have to do it all by yourself. And sometimes there's folks who ask you like that there's like more that they think you are capable of doing than you do yourself. Like that has happened to me a handful of times throughout my life, right? And it's like, oh, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. And this moment in our country's history, like this is the time. If you feel like you are being pulled to something, boy, answer that call. Because like
answer the call, man. I affirm.
Yeah.
I totally affirm that.
Yeah.
And Peggy, okay, so tell me this. So there are times where we get confronted with things we did not know were coming. We have no plan for it. And maybe someone we called in for support is not supportive. But I know that everything that I've gone through, I've never felt dropped. It might be difficult, but like people show up from unexpected places. Like, even if it's just like, I see you, sis, you're doing a good job. Or I know this is a hard moment for you, but please know we are watching you and you're inspiring. Like, you just don't know where it's going to come from.
Right.
And I'm saying it because I think sometimes we want a nice, neat plan. Right, for it to move forward, because we want to figure out, do we have all the dots connected, and that we want to try and solve for everything. You're not going to solve for everything because you don't even know what's coming.
That's
but
right.
It is worth it.
That's right. And I think, one of the things that I try to do is to go to the balcony when when things are messy or hard, or like the folks that you thought were going to show up for you do not. Then there are people you're like, oh, unexpected folks who show up and you're like, oh, hello, right? Like, I did not see this coming, right? Where help shows up either. So I think it's like going to the balcony and being like, what is actually happening here? I think is one of the tools that has served me when like things are just like an absolute hot mess and everything is on fire. But I also just want to name, that you do this for other people all of the time. I watch you do this. You have done this for me when things are hard. Just like even being seen goes such a long way. And I remember when I was a brand new ED, a brand new executive director, you and Trista took me out to lunch. You and Trista Harris took me out to lunch, and you were like, we've got you. Like, this is the place where you can ask questions that you cannot ask anybody else, right? Like, you created that space. And still to this day, one of the things that I carry with me from that meeting is that like, there are places and there are people where you can be like, help, like, I don't know how to do this. Right. Or, you said to me, like, I never take a meeting with anybody without an agenda. It changed my entire life. You literally said to me, you're like, I don't care if somebody writes it on a Post-it note and slides it across the table. Like, we just need an agenda for the meeting so that it serves you and it serves me, and we are not wasting each other's time.
That's right.
Like, what a gift. And so, like, I just want to, in this moment, also just say thank you to you for that, because I come back to that constantly. It has helped me be a more like clear leader. It has helped me manage people better. It has helped me just like also acknowledge my time is valuable. And I just like, I watch you do that all the time. So just in answer to that question that you just had, you do that consistently and have just modeled that for so many people, myself included. And then I get to do that work in a way too. And so I don't know if, and I'm going to just take the time to say like how impactful when I was like brand new in that role and leading an entire organization, for you to be like, hello, I see you. I got you. It's all right. This is hard. It feels hard because it's hard, and that's okay. It really, really matters. Because I think in this era of social media and like everybody having their little cheesecake smile and all this stuff, it feels like we don't get to struggle, or that like you can't share that struggle, or when things are hard and like you don't show up fully formed, right? If it is the legacy of your own family and how you have come to this moment and what that has looked like, your own struggle as an individual, that we can talk about that mess sometimes too, because it allows us to be vulnerable, connect with others, but also just get better results if we don't have to keep making the same mistakes all the time, or just not feel so isolated and alone in those moments.
That's right. I also think that it's important to give people space to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Right? People are like, well, 10 years ago, they had this opinion. I'm like, whoa, okay.
I bet you
I imagine that they've grown. I've imagined that they have seen more life.
Yeah.
I imagine that it's been informed by more people. And I do think that that is one of the things that can keep us in a stronghold, is people that are around us, not giving us room to both say what we need, to have the struggle, and to evolve. And I just think those are just such important lessons.
Absolutely.
And I thank you for saying and sharing that time. That was a special moment. And so I appreciate you saying that.
It's just true.
Yeah. The other thing, as we get ready to close, is that you have said a lot of people's names as we've talked. And why do you do that?
Because people need, well, one, we have to, I think, show gratitude. And I am painfully aware that I did not get here all by myself. And that any policy victory, any good thing that has happened in community has all happened because there are people, like multiple fingerprints, right, on all of those wins. And we are I think especially in politics, it's really hard because there's this idea, and I chafe against it, like that you have to say, this is what I did, this is what I did, this is what I accomplished. And in my community, like, leadership is a circle, and you step in when needed and you step out and then allow other folks to step in, and that nobody is more important than anybody else. And so this idea in politics of being like, I did this, I think is sometimes hard, right? When I think about all the folks who helped to move policies, right? There are so many people, or like the African American Family Preservation Act, for example. Rena Moran loved that policy into existence, and it passed when she was no longer there. But her fingerprints were all over it. And it was then lovingly handed off right, to Representative Agbaje, right, and Senator Champion, who also helped to move that and hold that. And of course, like all of the advocates who worked on that for so long to get it where it needed to be, that we should celebrate those as collective victories. Because I think that is so powerful in this moment where it's like, I, like we is where it's at, right?
We is where it is.
Yeah. Where when we are discouraged is when there's one person saying, y'all can't have that, or you can't have that, or you can't go there. This isn't for you. When we can talk about those collective victories that we have had, you can talk about your role in it and why that mattered, but that we can have collective ownership over those things. Those are the things I think that help us to realize like this work is for the long term. We don't always get wins overnight, but we are building and we are paying it forward. We are passing it forward. We are passing it on. And that is the work that has happened in so many of our neighborhoods, families, communities for so long. And the beauty of those stories and talking about the we, that's power.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, especially in this moment, that's how we rebuild and protect our democracy. That is how we dream bigger about what it is that we want for our families and our neighborhoods. And it is ultimately like how we win.
I agree. That is a good place. But I do have one more.
Yeah.
Okay. So because you also say your daughter's name, you say Siobhan's name.
Mm-hmm.
And if I think about the generations that we've been talking about, like the aunties and the grandmas and the mothers that were working, it was not a thing to be talking about being a mom at work.
No.
And that has been passed along very clearly. And we still don't have enough space to lead fully.
Mm-hmm.
But here you are, Lieutenant Governor, and you bring her, right? You share your motherhood stories. You center motherhood in your work. Why?
It is a core part of my identity. And it is my most important title. When I'm walking through the hall and I'll hear someone say, oh, that's Siobhan's mom, right? Not that's the Lieutenant Governor, not that's Peggy Flanagan, but that's Siobhan's mom. I'm like, yes, I am. And I just think about folks will say, oh, it's so nice that you bring her places. Like, let's be real. Sometimes it's like, we do not have childcare right now. This is a necessity. And, or like she would come up and be at meetings, right, with a blanket on the floor and toys, and like different people would pick her up and walk around the room. Like, I also have a baby that was raised in community, and that's okay, because that's how it was for a really long time. And I think so often the issues that are foundational for us to be able to have economic opportunity, not just for women, but for literally everybody, are those very issues. So when we don't talk about motherhood, it then discourages us from talking about childcare, which is the backbone of the economy, the workforce behind the workforce. It discourages us from talking about paid family and medical leave, which is we should not have to choose between a paycheck and caring for a new child or a sick loved one or ourselves. It's things like just making sure that we have access to healthcare when we need it, or that if I am Black or Indigenous, that the birth outcome that I have is not different, right, from my white counterpart. Like, those are the things that we have to be willing to talk about. And when we shy away from motherhood, if that is part of our identity, that feels inauthentic. And I think that all of these things that are just grounded in economic security for families are the things that I have learned from the way that I came up and how I was raised by a single mom. And now as a mom myself, are even more important for me to fight for. And I watched my mom do miracles with so little every day. I'll tell you one last story. When we were fighting to increase the minimum wage in 2014, it seemed pretty bleak. And this was like a hard time when we literally had Democrats in charge of the House, Senate, and the governor's office. And it was like, why is this so hard? And why is like asking for $9.50 and then having it be indexed to inflation, right? As costs go up, like the minimum wage should go up. I called my mom after I was like watching Siobhan just sleep in her crib. And she said, well, she said, I certainly wish that there were folks who are fighting for us the way that you're fighting right now. And she said, I wouldn't want anybody to give up on us. And it was like the kick in the pants that I needed for the next meeting to like go into that room and be like, absolutely not. Right. My mama told me, right?
My mama said, keep fighting.
So, but like, that's just like, I think if we leaned into more of that stuff, we'd connect with more people and would be able to get those better results. And these are things that across the world, right? Like highly successful countries and democracies have implemented. We can do the same thing here. We just have to speak up a little bit more about it and not feel like we have to deny a whole part of ourselves when it is truly the foundation for our entire economy and future.
Right on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was really a different kind of conversation, and I was here for it. I appreciate you.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Peggy Flanagan.
If you'd like to explore more content and join our community, find us at conversationswithchanda.com. We have a wonderful collection of episodes featuring notable guests that you can enjoy on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast.